Hey everybody, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today on our 2021 Jeep Wrangler, we're going to be showing you how to install the Blue Ox diode wiring kit. But before we do that, let's take a minute, check it out, and make sure it's going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I figured it'd be beneficial just to touch base on probably the most asked question when it comes to setting up a flat tow, and that's what are the main parts I'm going to need. So you're going to have a total of 5. Your base plate, which provides us with an attachment point to hook our tow bar up to it. Tow bar connects to the front of your vehicle, to the back of your coach. Third main part will be safety cables, and these are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep everything paired together. Fourth main part will be your tow bar wiring, and this is going to transfer the lighting signals from the back of your RV to the back of your Jeep, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main part will be a supplemental braking system. And what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your Wrangler whenever you hit the brakes in your coach, bringing you to a safe and predictable stop. This is a perfect example on how the diode wiring is going to work. So we got the left turn signal going on our motorhome, and then it's sending it back here to our Jeep. And the same is going to hold true for the right turn, your tail lights, as well as your brake lights. You'll have all your bases covered there as far as that goes. And honestly, when it comes to picking out tow bar wiring, a diode kit like the Blue Ox one is definitely the way to go, at least in my opinion. And I say it because once you have them installed, you're not even really going to be able to tell anything was modified. But more importantly, the setup time when you are ready to flat tow is going to be really good. You're not going to really have to mess with a whole lot. You're just going to have to plug connector into the front of your Jeep and into the back of your motorhome, as opposed to, let's say, magnetic lighting, for example. With those, you'd have to set them up every single time you want to flat tow. Take them off of the vehicle when you're done, and then not to mention you'll have a big old box of wires and lights that you're going to have to store. So I mentioned that ease of use, right? And so when you're ready to set up, all you're going to have to do is plug a cable in to the connector plug up here and into the back of your motorhome. Now, with that said, this kit is not going to come included with the 6-way round connector plug or the cable. So keep that in mind. The one that we're using here today is made by Blue Ox. You get the cable and the connector plug. Now, with that in mind, there's a lot of different types of cables and whatnot available, and you want to make sure to pick the right one. So, for example, you're going to want a coiled cable like this if your tow bar does not have channels in it. So our Etrailer one that we're using has a little post that you can slide the cable over, but some of the other tow bars are just going to be plain, and you want the coiled one, that way it stays up off the ground when you're going straight, and then stretches whenever you make those turns. And then there's some tow bars that have channels, meaning on the side there will be an opening there that will allow you to pass your cables through. And so if that's the style of tow bar that you got, you have a couple options. You're going to want to use a straight cable like this, that way you can run it through there. Or even, this is actually a hybrid one where it's coiled at the end here, but hybrid one or a straight one will work in those situations. And then let's say, for example, if your tow bar, some of the more premier tow bars actually come included with a cable and a 6-way round connector, like the Roadmaster Nighthawk, for example. That's one of them. So if that's the style of tow bar that you got that comes extra with them components, then the plain bare bones kit, as far as the diode wiring is concerned, will be a perfect matchup. There are several other kits available for the Jeep as well as far as tow bar wiring is concerned. Roadmaster makes a really good kit. We do a lot of those here, and if I'm being honest, I'll say they're right on par with each other in terms of reliability and ease of use and things like that. I'm kind of a fan of the Blue Ox diodes though. They're a little bit smaller, just a little easier to work with, but it's not really a huge deal, especially on a vehicle like the Jeep. You got a lot of room to work behind the tail lights and things like that. So just something I thought I'd mention. As far as getting everything installed, it's not complicated per se, but it definitely is time consuming, just having to route wires from the front to the back and go up to the tail lights and everything like that. Thankfully, it's something you only have to do one time, and then you get to reap all the benefits of it being super easy to set up whenever you're ready to hit the road. But if this is something you plan on doing yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin your installation, you're going to be here at the front of your Jeep and go ahead and pop the hood. And you're going to take the big bundle of diode wiring that they give you, take one end of it and drop it straight down to the underside of your vehicle. And now would be a good time to drop down other wires and stuff too. If you're doing a braking system and having to route stuff at the same place, it'd be ideal to do that. But anyway, you want that wire to run down, and wherever you're going to mount up your connector plug, go ahead and run it through that bracket. We're going to take our rubber boot there, slide that over the wire. I'm just going to push that out of the way. And what you can do is separate the wires. So just carefully cut in between them a little bit. And we're going to pull these apart, probably 3 or 4 inches, something like that. And then what I like to do is cut the end off just to kind of give us a fresh start if we nicked one of the wires and we were separating them or something. But then you want to strip back the insulation on each end of the wire just a little ways, about like that, and then give the wires a good twist. We'll do that same thing for our remaining ends there. The back of our connector plug, we're going to have our terminals here, and they're going to be labeled. They're kind of tricky to see, but this one's TM for tail light, so the brown wire gets plugged into it. This one is GD for ground, so the white wire goes there. Then we have LT for left turn, yellow wire plugs into that. And then RT for right turn, so the green wire goes there. And if you if you're going to be installing a battery charge line kit, 99% of the time they're going to go to that center post. We're not doing that today, so we ain't got to worry about it. But the way this is going to work, you want to back those set screws out almost all the way, but then take the appropriate color wire. So we have the TM one, which will be brown. We'll push that into place and tighten the set screw back down. So I'll just work my way around here until we get them all plugged in. Here's what the connector plug looks like once you have all the wires hooked up. And eventually, once you verify everything's working the way it should, I'll come back in here with some silicone and seal everything up really nice to help prevent corrosion. But I want to wait till the end to do that. That way, if I have to come back in here for any reason, if one of these gets loose or something, it's not going to be a big mess. So for now, I'll just temporarily put it through my bracket, put that dust boot on the back side of it, and mount it up. Back in the engine compartment, we can take our wiring and we're going to find a spot to ground the white wire, and I did. It's in the kind of corner over here on the driver's side. So what we're going to do is very carefully cut just that white wire in half. And kind of separate it a little ways from the rest of our harness there. And we'll strip this back. Like that. Give the wire a twist, and we're going to crimp on a ring terminal. And moving forward, any of the other connections that we make, whether it be a ring terminal or a spade terminal, this is how you're going to do it. You'll slide in on the bare end of the wire and then crimp it down. And so you want to do that, attach that on the side of the wire that's actually going to our connector plug up front. As far as the remaining portion of the wire, I'm just going to peel that off of the harness and hold on to it. We might be reusing it for something else here a little bit later on in the installation. Here is a ground post that we're going to use here in the corner on the driver's side. So there's a 10mm head nut. I'm going to get this off. Get that off of there. And then you're going to take the ring terminal and we'll slide that on the post. And just tighten the nut back down. We can continue to route our wiring now towards the back of our Jeep. So I went ahead and dropped it down to the underside, right along our firewall here. Before we get back underneath the Jeep and continue to route our wiring, it kind of makes things a little bit easier if we move to the back here and start to get everything prepped. That way we can spend as little time as possible underneath of our vehicle. So what that's going to entail is removing our taillights. And just inside of the Jeep, there's going to be a small little panel and a fastener that you can pull out to get these off. Here's this panel, and you can just pry up on that with a flathead screwdriver, trim tool. Get that removed, and that will expose a fastener in here, which you can pull out using a 10 millimeter. You should be able to just pull this light right on out, and we will disconnect it by pushing down on this tab here. And then we can pop that connector off, and we'll set our light off to the side. You do the same thing over on the passenger side. Did a couple of things here. One of them, the factory wiring connector had some tape on it. I just peeled that back so we can work with the wires here in a little bit. And then I took a piece of tubing. So this is a piece of nylon air tube. You could use another wire, straighten out a metal coat hanger or something. Just drop it down into the taillight pocket. That way it'll come out the bottom side of the Jeep. And that way when our wiring gets back here, we can tape the wiring to it and be able to pull it right up into position in our taillight pocket. Back underneath the driver's side front of our Jeep. So this is where our wiring dropped down the firewall, and I actually routed it into the frame. So there's a hole in the frame, pushed the wiring through there, and then I took some wire loom, put it over the wire just so it wasn't rubbing on metal. But for the most part, we routed the wiring through the frame rails. So I just pushed it towards the back, and it all went through pretty easily actually, without really any issues. You know, I just keep feeding it through. Even where the frame starts to go up and kind of over the rear axle, just follows it all the way to the back of our Jeep. So here's where our wires actually come out of the frame rail. All right. And so again, I used our wire loom to keep them protected, but once I got them out, I separated them into individual strands. We have a green, a brown, and a yellow. The green is going to get routed over to the passenger side. The yellow is going to go up into the driver's side taillight pocket. And the brown, what I've done is actually cut, right? And so what we're going to do, the kit will come with another brown wire, another bundle of brown wire. That end of the extra bundle of brown wire is also going to go over to the passenger side. All right, and that's going to be our taillight wire. So you take both of those brown ends, strip the insulation back, and twist them together real tight. And then those are going to get placed into a butt connector, which I upgraded to a heat shrink style because it ends seal up and just help against corrosion a little bit. Both those ends go into one end of the butt connector. And then the remaining portion of our brown wire, like I said, I cut that one, right? The remaining portion, strip it back. Place it into the end. And crimp it down. So now this portion will run up with our yellow wire into the driver's side. That other brown, like we said, will go over to the passenger side, but first we'll come back and get these ends sealed up. Got our wiring connector there taped up for a little extra protection. And then I took the yellow and brown here, taped them to our pull wire. So we'll pull that right up into the taillight pocket. And then what's left here is that, that brown and green wire that we talked about. So I just ran them into the frame and running it along this cross member here. You can kind of see bits and pieces of the wire. Just run all the way across, and I already have them pulled up into position there. Back up in our driver's side taillight pocket now. Our new wiring, I cut that to length and crimped on some of these spade terminals. And then I got into our factory wiring, okay, and I got these sorted. So I was looking for our taillight signal and our stoplight signal. The yellow, the factory yellow wire, that's going to be our stop and turn, and the factory white wire with the gray stripe, that's going to be our taillight signal. And you want the thicker white and gray wire, because there's another one similar to this, but it's a lot thinner in diameter, so make sure you have the thicker one. But what you do is you just cut those wires in half, about halfway through, and strip the ends back. And all four ends are going to receive one of these spade terminals. So I'll get this last one on here. And what we're able to do now, the ends of our factory wire that are closest to the connector plug, you're going to slide those on the diode that has a single pole coming out of it. Like that. And you'll just go color for color back on the factory wires. So slide right over. And then we can take our diode wiring, get that hooked up. What I've done is just use electrical tape to kind of tape our diodes up to our factory harness there. Grab your tail light, and we'll get that plugged back in and reinstall it the opposite way that we removed it. Over here on the passenger side, I essentially did the exact same thing. Really, the only difference is going to be the color of wires that you're going to be using. So the factory white wire with the orange stripe, that's going to be your taillight signal. And so the new brown wire gets plugged into that diode. And then the factory green wire, that's going to be for our stop and turn. So the new green wire gets plugged into that diode. So like I said, really not a whole lot to it there. Pretty much the same. So with these connections made, I'm going to get this taped up and secured and get our light reinstalled just like we did the other side. With everything hooked up now, it's a good idea to test the wiring to make sure that it's working properly. So I got our umbilical here plugged into the front of our Jeep and into a test box, which this is just simulating a motorhome. You probably are not going to have one of these, so you can use your coach, but keep in mind if your coach has any issues with its wiring, it might mislead you into thinking it's something did on the Jeep side. But we'll go ahead and run through all of our functions. We'll try out our taillight signal, our left turn, our right turn, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Blue Ox diode wiring kit on our 2021 Jeep Wrangler.
First things first, have you towed before?
No.
Okay, so as of whenever you are hooked up, there's no more reverse. You can't reverse.
Okay.
Don't know if you heard that or not.
I have, yeah.
Okay. When you are not towing and you would like to just drive around,
Yep.
you can actually take these out. just twist and pull out. And then you can get some like tabs or something to put in there, and because see right now it's a little moisture in there.
Yeah.
You put the tabs in there and there won't be any moisture or dirt or anything getting in there.
Okay.
So you just push in and twist. And you put the tab back on. Alrighty. And then we go to the actual tow bar. Lift up and pull out.
Okay.
And I'll have you do that side while I'll do this side.
Okay.
Just pull up to it. Put the tab in. Everything's a tab to me. There you go. Lock her into place. See, there's a right way to do it. As long as it's touching, the two pieces are touching each other, then it's on right.
Like that.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. And then your safety cables. Usually we say to crisscross them, but with this one it's already crisscrossed, so you're good there. Put that there.
Okay.
And then your wiring. There's a tab here up top. That's the only part with a little tab. And there's one here at the top as well. It's a little insert. So there's only one right way to put that in.
Okay.
And it has to go behind that little piece there so that it doesn't pull out.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
And then your breakaway switch here. That is, so if you, God forbid, disconnect or anything, it pulls this out and it automatically applies your brakes so you don't go into traffic or in the ditch or anything like that. And it has to be connected directly to the hitch itself at all times because, you know, if you disconnect it or something and you attach it to the wiring, if the wiring also disconnected, it's not pulling that out. So,
That makes sense. This stays on all the time?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually people will do it just like that. They'll take this part off.
Just leave it hang like that?
Yep.
Okay.
But that's got to be in at all times. Otherwise, your brakes are not going to let you go anywhere.
Okay. Okay.
Easy enough?
That looks so. Yeah.
It'll get a lot easier once you get to doing it. But
Okay.
also, these will fully lock out whenever you're pulling. And if you're going to disconnect and you need a little bit of leeway, these are actually release the tension in the bar here. You just push that and you'll be able to slide it.
You push that in. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Is there an exact distance from the bumper, or is it just kind of eyeballing? Or
It's pretty close to fully extended right now.
Oh, it is.
It'll only go a little bit further than that.
Okay.
And it'll trek behind at all times. So,
All right, that sounds good.
all right, that's it for the front portion. And then you'll see the little piston on your brake
Yep.
pedal. That'll
Yep.
stay on there at all times. And then tucked back up on this side panel here, there'll actually be a switch box. I'll have a little toggle switch on the side and it'll say on or off.
Okay.
So when you're towing, obviously it always has to be on in order to get your braking system to work. But that's literally all you have to do. Flip it on and it's working.
Okay.
Jeeps are the easiest. I love them so much.
Or like just the whole trailer situation, you mean?
For flat towing,
Oh, okay.
because
That's good to know.
it's literally get it into neutral get the transfer case into neutral, put it in park, and you're done.
All right. So
Like every Jeep ever. So yeah, transmission in neutral,
neutral. Okay.
and then it is a little tight. You might have to struggle with it to really get it down there, but that into neutral.
You know when it goes in there?
Yeah, this one will light up here.
I see.
So you're in 4 high.
4 high. So over.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay.
And then now put it in park.
Okay. Vehicle movement. Okay.
And it will because you're in flat toe.
All right.
And then you're good.
Break off, that on. Okay. And then when you're getting ready to take it off, turn that off. And then is there a sequence or is this
Yeah, you'll put yourself back into neutral.
on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you would put that into whichever one you want. I guess 2 high is the typical one.
Okay.
Fight it. Push it. Push it.
Really? Okay. That's neutral. High.
There you go.
Okay. All right. I think I got it. You got to let it up. And then now it's back engaged.
Yep.
Okay.
Neutral.
Okay.
Transfer case is in neutral.
And then back to park.
Put it back in park.
Break off.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I gotta have a break off.